Hello YouTube, this is the Jeff Programmer, and in our last video we basically were trying to bring the client down to the signal so that we could do some things like we were doing in our test program. So if you remember, in our test program we had some charts going, we also had this indicator set up, and so what we're going to do right now is we're going to test our code one more time and make sure that we didn't break anything. And we have this indicator, we have this this client. What we will eventually do is we want to print out what the EMA is every time we get a tick. We want to calculate it and see if it's time to generate the signal or not. But for right now, let's just run our program and see if we haven't broken anything. Hello YouTube, this is the Jeff Programmer, and in our last video we basically were trying to bring the client down to the signal so that we could do some things like we were doing in our test program. So if you remember, in our test program we had some charts going, we also had this indicator set up, and so what we're going to do right now is we're going to test our code one more time and make sure that we didn't break anything. And we have this indicator, we have this this client, and what we will eventually do is we want to print out what the EMA is every time we get a tick. We want to calculate it and see if it's time to generate the signal or not. But for right now, let's just run our program and see if we haven't broken anything. Logging into Oanda, and oh, we got a null pointer. I knew at some point my program would stop working. So what is a null pointer at this point? It's not that. So we have a strategy, we have a signal, client. Probably client is null. So let's look at this. So we create I see what's going on. Okay, so client doesn't get initialized until our signal gets initialized. So we cannot get our indicator at this point. We will have to get this later on. So let's do it here. If n is equal to null, then we will do all this stuff. So basically this is going to get initialized on our first. Let's think about this. Could we pass an indicator in versus because this particular strategy only needs an indicator. It does not need it. Well, it does need the pair because it's always going to need the pair. But an indicator, I need to think about this for a minute. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to configure the data instrument outside of this class and pass it in. So instead of passing in a parent chart type, what we're going to do is we're going to pass in a data instrument. And I need to call this what it is because in just doesn't seem right. So I'm going to say data instrument. That's what's going to get passed into a this signal, and then here I've got to create a getters and setters for the instrument so that we can at least get it. We don't need to set it per se, so let's put that down here. That's not what I want. So we return the instrument. So when we create a data instrument, we're basically passing the three things that we're going to need in our class. So we will do that not here, but here we're going to say instrument dot get instrument, and so this will be configured with a client. So I won't need to do that. So basically I can configure, yep, we can do this. We can configure our indicator. What does indicator take? I forget. Indicator takes an instrument and a config. Oh, whoops. There we go. Yes. So I think that's what I want to do. Now something else is going to turn red because, yes, so we're going to say, do we have a client at this point? We don't have a client. So we're going to call this the EMA 20 crossover. And we're going to pass in a data instrument. And that's what we're going to pass in here. Why is this giving me problems? Something's not right. That was weird. Huh. Okay. So our strategy manager here, it doesn't have a client either. But we did that with our signal manager. So if you remember back in our API program, when we created a signal manager, we passed in the client. Looks like we're going to have to do that here with our strategy manager. I was hoping not to have to do that, but here we're going to say this is the, that's what's going on. This needs to get refactored. Well, that's debatable. Yeah, so we're gonna have to rename this. So this is gonna be very specific. EMA 20 crossover strategy. We will have to figure a better option out for this later on. New data instrument chart type and client. So instrument is going to be EUR/USD and chart type dot S10. Okay. So I think this should work. Let's give our program a run and see what we get. So we're logging into Oanda, and remember, every time we get a price update, we should be running the EMA. Let's look at what our signal is doing. Here's our signal. Oh, price update. We're just printing this. So there you go. So I think what we're going to have to do here is, if you recall, in our test rates program, we did EMA.getHistory and get points, and we did that, and that stayed up to date every time we got our a price update. So let's bring the chart in and see that that's what's happening. So grab these two charts. Here is our signal. Except for we're not going to have a MACD. So we have a OHLC chart, and we bring in this code here, and that's just going to run right in here. So the first price update will spawn the chart, and then every price update after that should be updating the chart. The instrument is used here. I guess we don't use it. It's used to get this. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. So I think the chart pops up on my other screen. But we have to wait for that first price update before we're going to see anything. And it's 9:20 on a Tuesday night, so the market's pretty slow. So let's see if we can... Oh, there we go. Here is our chart. So right now, we see that our chart updates. So the idea with this is when the price crosses over this line, in this case, when the price gets above that line, we're going to buy. And then when the price drops below that line, we're going to sell. So you can see here, price kind of jumped up above it. Here dropped below, but then came right back above, and then stayed above it for a long time. It went from here up to here, which was a few pips. Something big happened over here, but that's the idea, is that when the price crosses this EMA 20 line, we want to send a buy or sell signal. It's not a great strategy. Most likely we'll lose money, but that's the idea of a signal. So next we want to print out what our EMA is at this point, which we're not doing. So let's do that. So we're printing out the tick. Let's also we call get history. So int t equals ema.getHistory. And we're going to change t to be the type that it actually is, which is bars. So I'm going to say bars. And we'll pass that in here and here. And in t equals our points. So we'll change that to be what it should be, which is points. So now we can plot the points, but the point that we're interested in is the last point. So if we print the tick, let's also print the last data point. So points dot get points dot size -1 should be the last one, and we'll print that out, and we should be able to see what's going on. Let's run this again. All right, so here is our graph. We can see our single data point doesn't have a print method, so we need to print that value out. So let me stop this, and we will do that next. So we need to create a toString method in our point class. So let's look at our data points, which I think we want to look at just for now, just the single data point. Maybe what we'll do is we'll come up here to our data point class, and we'll have a public abstract string toString. That way all of our classes can override that, or we force them to override it, and that way we can print out something. So in this case, we're just going to return, I think it's string.value of point. And here for double D in points. I don't know if it'll let me do that. Guess so. String return equals ret plus equals string dot value of D, and then we'll just return. There we go. So now we can print both. Probably should put a space here. Let's see, dlim equals here's a small trick that I've learned. On the first one coming in, it doesn't append the space, but then every one after that it does, and so you get the spaces just in the middle of, and not have to worry about figuring out where you're at. So now we should be able to print this data point. Let's see what happens when we run this again. And if this doesn't work, which I think it will work, but we'll have to pick up the fix for this in the next video. So we're waiting for a price to come in so that we can see our chart. There we go. So here is our chart. And as you can see, our point is above where the current tick price is. So in the next video, we'll do the rules for, like, if the new point is greater than the last point, but yet it's lower than the current point, then it means that, you know, the price is headed down and vice versa. So anyway, we'll get into those rules in the next video. So if you like this video, please click like, and thanks for watching. This was the Java Programmer.